So let's start with our The Sims clone. So on the first part, we're just going to see the rules for creating the level and creating the world, and then we're going to have pathfinding, and then we're going to have interactions, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so we're going to need a few things from the package manager at first, just so that we can set up our rules. So on the package manager, let this load, we're going to be using ProGrids and ProBuilder to set up the level. Later, we're going to have dynamic wall creation, and making and adding doors. All these things are going to be handled more procedurally, but for now I didn't really want to mess with the procedural generation or dynamically creating the mess. I just wanted to go and just have a level and then go and create the rest that we're going to need later. So okay, I'm going to use ProGrids so that I can basically create and show you the setup of how we're going to be saying that this is going to be a wall and the walls needs to be placed at that precise position, and so on and so on. Okay, for the models I'm just going to be using Mixamo and the animations, so let's get started. First of all, we need to have enabled our ProGrids, and I'm going to throw in a game object. Let's delete that actually, and let's go under Tools, ProBuilder, and we just need to add a new polyshape. Okay, let's set this to 0. Actually, where is it? Okay, so open ProBuilder, and I'm going to add a new shape, which we're going to start with a cube. Now, I'm just going to move this one down, and this will be the base of our grid. Okay, oops, oh come on. Okay, say build, close that, let's move that there, and then we're just going to make this some slightly bigger. Doesn't matter the size, only thing that it matters is that we keep the same distance so that we can utilize the lines properly. Okay, so let's do something like that and something like that for now. Maybe you want this to be bigger, maybe you don't, it doesn't matter. Okay, so this will be the base of our level. We're going to have a grid position, and the characters will basically only exist on the corners of this, and we're going to be using these lines to be moving. Well, not this line, but they're going to be going from one node to the other node and to the other node and so on. The pathfinding is going to work like that, and the same is going to go with making this moving diagonally or not. So with that said, we are going to have obstacles. Of course, walls is a big thing in The Sims, so we're going to have to create the logic for our walls. I'm going to create a new cube in here. Let's see, is it built? It is built. Okay, so let's select all of this and let's move it upwards. So I'm going to move the pivot right to the center. Let's close this model, or let's just move them over there. So okay, so the walls now, we need to decide where should the walls exist. If we have the walls to be placed right onto the lines, right onto the edges, that means we are technically, and actually let's see this, let's make this somewhat to resemble a wall, and I'm going to make this as 0.15 and maybe even lower, I guess 0.1 even, something like that, and I'm going to raise this slightly like that as well. Now we need to kind of bring this all forward, and I think the way to do this is to move this over here. I still want the pivot for later to be exactly where it is, but not here, but at the very center. And I think you do this from here where you do, well, let's see, freeze transform, yeah, with freeze transform. Okay, so that is our wall. Let's set this back to 1. So if we decided that our walls coexist here and live in this position, then that means we are automatically disabling a lot of movements in the Pathfinder. So to maybe better visualize this, let's switch to ISO, and yeah, I guess you can't really tell that this is a wall. So let's also add a new material onto that. Something like that. Okay, we're going to change that later, it doesn't matter. So if we had the wall over here, then that means if we do, let's see, under the effects, if we do a line with this, let's close that. Let's close ProGrids for now. Let's move that over there. I'm going to change the color. Does it have a fix? No, it doesn't. Yeah, okay, so let's just do color red for now. Yeah, on both edges. Okay, so let's go up. So if we were doing it like this, it means this is not a valid direction. This is not a valid direction. Okay, and you get the idea. This is still not. This again, and all around, it's basically not valid directions. But it's not how it works, okay, because it's not how it works in the Sims. Some games use this and use this kind of coordinate system. Okay, we don't want to do it like this, however, because it takes a lot of space. Okay, so even if you, well, I mean, you don't really get anything if you are removing a direction from this. So what we should be blocking should be the middle points, which means this might not be a valid direction, and maybe this might not be a valid direction, although I think there's no reason why this should, well, okay, maybe you want this to be a valid direction, and actually no, you don't want this, because if we go with middle point, this should be the case. You shouldn't be able to move in this direction, you should be able to move with this direction and this direction, so you're basically only eliminating 2 directions if you get it by half, I mean, and that will be this direction, and then of course that will be this direction and this. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So basically the easy way to do this, if we start removing all of the things we've added, will be to basically create our levels, our walls, not levels, to basically have them coexist. So having the center of the world to be right under the center of this. Okay, so what will that be? How we can do that? Set this to 0.5, move this backwards, and then open ProBuilder and then do freeze transform. Okay, so now whenever I move this, I'm always at the center, which means on our Pathfinder, we're only going to have to disable only 3 directions, which is super easy to do, and without having to worry about what we're doing. Okay, now let's open up, let's make it seem like it's a wall. So I'm just going to create one of these and move it about 1 higher. Okay, so this will be about 2 meters. Usually walls are about 3 meters. Okay, so that will be our first wall. From that, if we start placing this alongside, now this is If we do not want to use, procedural generation to create our walls, it's basically just placing points. Actually, that's still wrong. We forgot to do one thing. As you can see, I am onto the pivot, but there's one problem. This closes the entire node. So we need to go back, set this back again to 0.5, move this here, and then do the freeze transform. Okay. Now we're talking. So now I'm on this node. So this node has the wall of this. The only thing that you need to take into account in this case is that if you are on the very edge of the node, your wall is outside the level. But that's really easy to fix because you can find the edge nodes super simple. You just, any calculations you do, you just do them -1. Okay. So let's say we want to create our walls and whatever, you're just going to do it like this. Okay, if you rotate something, let's see, by 90 degrees, you just need to go on the higher node like this, and we place them. Okay, now there is a choice to make. You can also rotate them this way. Okay, but because I like to use positive values, we're going to say that each wall that is horizontal, it's always going to be 90 degrees. Okay, and the same thing is with diagonals. If we go here, but diagonals are kind of an edge case, because in this case you can see that they actually do not line up anywhere. So we need to find a solution to this, but it's something we're going to worry about much later. Okay, for now we can create an entire game without diagonals, and as you can see it's going to be something like this. So you're basically just going to have to connect this as an offset. Okay, so yeah, but as I said, you can have an entire game without diagonals. Sims 1, for example. Although there you didn't actually have 3D meshes, you had sprites. Okay, so that's the idea for creating the walls. And that's basically the only logic we kind of want to have. For these corners, you can add some extra position or some columns there, it doesn't matter. Okay, so we have a small house like this now. Okay, remember that we always want to have positive values, and we keep it like that. I mean, you don't always need to have positive values, but let's say that's the rule for the game, is so that we do not have to mess with negatives and so on and so on. I mean, who wants to have negative stuff in their life anyway? Okay, so that will be your first house. I think for setting up the rules and as a first part, this will do, because that's only basically what we need to do to start creating the pathfinding and using these guys and girls to move around the world and navigating and escaping all this stuff. So that's it, at least for this part. On the next one, we're going to start writing some actual code into this. So I'll see you there. Feel free to support my Patreon and so on, so that we can keep continuing making all of these nice things we're making. I'll see you next time.